From claims of healings and visions to the world's most inexplicable events, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the truth is always worth the hunt.
EWTN Radio presents The Miracle Hunter with Michael O'Neill.
Welcome to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Hey everyone, I bet you can't believe it's November already. Well, here in Chicago, the weather is certainly indicating such. Things are changing, but it's November, which is an important month for remembering the souls of Purgatory. This is that month where we remember the dead, those people who have gone before us, and we dedicate in a special way our prayers and attention. And we've got the absolute world's expert on Purgatory. It's the Purgatory lady herself, Susan Tassone. She'll be joining us on today's program to talk to us about Purgatory saints. And later in the show, we'll be talking with Tim Francis, author of the book From the Crackhouse to God's House. And he's an evangelist in some ways. He runs the website Science Tests Faith and goes around speaking at different parishes around the country, talking about the way that science looks at miracles. And I've known Tim for some years. He's got a brand new book that's out that talks about his path to being this person who spreads the word on miracles, and the book is called From the Crackhouse to God's House. So we'll be talking to him about how science tests faith. And later in the show, we'll be talking about the new programs coming out on EWTN. People can check out Explore with the Miracle Hunter. One of my favorite episodes is about Paray-le-Monial, where I visit this place in France where St. Margaret Mary Alacoque first experienced dramatic visions of Jesus' Sacred Heart, and explore the origins of this cherished devotion. And on Wednesday, November 13th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, They Might Be Saints features the story of Montse Grasses. They look at the saintly life of Montse Grasses, the cheerful 17-year-old who faced cancer with extraordinary faith and joy, and who could be the first woman of Opus Dei to be declared a saint. And that is They Might Be Saints, airing every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And on the 13th, we have one dedicated to the life of Montse Grasses. Later in the show, we're going to be looking at the Might Be Saint of the Day. For today, we've got Blessed Ludovico Morbioli, who lived from 1433 to 1485 in Italy. And the 365 Days with Mary project for today, November 9th, is Virgin of the Almudena. And that's from Madrid in Spain in the 15th century. I've been to that spot. And the question of the week, isn't it proof that it's a false phenomena if all the wounds of the stigmatics around the world don't exactly match up? I'll see if I can answer that question later in the show. And the miracle of the day for today, November 9th, is the canonization miracle of Marie Leonie Paradis that occurred on November 9th. So we'll talk about her later in the program. Let's take a look at Miracle News. We do this every week where we talk about the miracles happening around the world and those things that relate to miracles. And unfortunately, this is somewhat of a short story, but we'll be giving you more information on this. This was reported on Spirit Daily and originally from the Samoa Observer, that in Samoa, there's a woman who is exhibiting strange wounds similar to cuts. This is a teenage girl from Mulavai, Sufata. And if you look at the images online, and I posted the link to the Miracle Hunter Facebook page, you can see that the wounds are exhibiting on her forehead and her hands. And they are not typical stigmata, you might say. They look like slash marks or cut marks. And so there are some people who are reporting that this is true stigmata. And they're saying, of course, the stigmata is the mystical phenomena where a saint or mystic or other is exhibiting the wounds of Christ on their body in a way that corresponds to the crucifixion. And, of course, whenever they examine cases of stigmata, they're always trying to rule out personal harm, someone causing those wounds on their own body. And in this case in Sufata in Samoa, certainly looks to be the case that these were personally inflicted wounds, unfortunately. We'll be reporting back on this on a future episode, but church authorities have not yet done a full investigation on this. This is something that's just been being reported in the popular media in Samoa, and there are other claims of miracles related to this young girl who's exhibiting these wounds. But we'll report back when we have more information about the potential stigmatic from Samoa. And in the meantime, you can check out the article. I'll be posting that to the Facebook page of The Miracle Hunter. Let's take a look at Catholic Pub Trivia. We do this every week where we ask a trivia question, give out a prize to an email that writes in the fastest with the correct answer. And last week we had a good question. It was on All Souls Day, every priest is allowed to celebrate how many masses? And the answer to that question was 3. Thanks for everybody who wrote in. We got all kinds of numbers coming in, but the number was 3. And for this week, this is inspired by the previous week's question. We we commented on whether that was a true miracle, the Chicago Bears losing with a Hail Mary pass to the Washington Commanders. And so this week's question is inspired by that. What Catholic quarterback inspired the phrase Hail Mary pass? Again, we're looking for the name of a Catholic quarterback. And if you think you know that answer, want to win the prize, the image of the faces of Mary, send me an email to questions@miraclehunter.com. And the fastest one with the right answer is going to win that prize. And answers and winners will be posted on the show page on miraclehunter.com. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking with Tim Francis, author of From the Crackhouse to God's House. He'll be talking to us about how science tests faith. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Now, I go around the country talking about miracles, and I talk about how the Catholic Church investigates the miraculous and giving talks at different conferences and to different parishes, etc. And there's someone else who goes around speaking at parishes as well, talking about miracles as well. His name is Tim Francis. He's a nationally known speaker and evangelist, and he's founder of this ministry called You Shall Believe. And the stories that he's able to bring to light, traveling around, are absolutely mind-blowing. I've been where he's spoken before, and the crowds are just completely enraptured with what Tim Francis presents, specifically in the way that science tests faith. And so I've known Tim for some years, and I know he does great work spreading the gospel through miracles specifically, which is also my approach in so many ways. So it's so great to see his work blossoming and so many people turning out wherever he speaks. But the story of Tim Francis is amazing because he wasn't necessarily doing this right out of the gate. He had a big conversion, reversion, you might say, and a big turnaround in his life at the very least. And he's got a brand new book that's out. The name of the book is From the Crackhouse to God's House. This is a brand new book that comes to us by 21st Century Press, and it's an amazing story. It's one that you've got to hear. And so we're excited today to talk to the man himself, Tim Francis. Welcome to the program, Tim.
Michael, hey, thanks for having me, man, and thank you for everything that you're doing for the church, my brother.
Well, good. No, I think it's we share a great interest, and our work overlaps in so many ways, and I think it's important to evangelize through miracles to open up people's eyes to the reality of the supernatural. And this is what motivates you, and this is what keeps you going, traveling around the country. But you've got a brand new book, From the Crackhouse to God's House. Tell us what inspired you to put this all into writing.
Well, first, and I want to do the subtitle because that's probably more important than the actual title. It's From the Crackhouse to God's House, the Power of a Mother's Prayer. And everything is going to go back to Mom and Dad consistently. But what inspired me to write the book, I traveled for 10-plus years. We'll talk about that. And probably 13 years, going to parishes, conferences, anywhere I can go to share this message that so impacted me. And all the time, Mike, as you know, as a speaker, people would say, hey, do you have a book? And I'd be like, nah, man, I'm there's other books. There's great books out there that I promote. And never really felt compelled to write a book. But my wife asked me for about 10 years, and another holy person kept asking me to write a book. So I said, all right. And I'm so glad I did. I think everybody should write a book about their life because everybody has a story, but in particular to honor my mother and Our Lady. I think it shines through and it shows really the power of a mother's prayer. As it mentions, from the crack house to God's house, and we don't have that much time, but there's a bunch of different directions we can take this. So you take it from here, Michael.
Well, I think it's so fascinating. Your life has made a big turnaround, as the title might suggest, and obviously you've dedicated your life to evangelizing through miracles, and but you weren't always doing this. Talk a little bit about some of the hurdles that you had to go through. What was your life like before you found the path that you're on right now?
Yeah, I mean, short and sweet. I grew up in a town called New Carlisle, Ohio, which is somewhere near Springfield, Ohio. And it was a small town of 5,000 people. Everybody knew everybody, Mike, and we went to church every Sunday. I'm one of 6, 5 boys and a girl. Great childhood, very orderly. We ate dinner every night at 5:30. And then what happened is that, like many, I went off to college. And Ohio State, I always say my feast days were Ohio State, Michigan football. That's the stuff I lived for, working out, football. I was a football guy, not a Bible guy by any means. Once a month, I'd come home and because I was in the Air National Guard, and I'd go to mass, and I on a Saturday night or something, I hated it. I thought it was boring, all that kind of stuff, and I was just caught up in the culture. And to make a super long story short, I was in Texas. I was living in Texas at the time, after college, chasing money. My mom sent me a tape. It's on my website. Just to mention that slowly, Science Test is plural with an S, so sciencetestfaith.com. If people Google Science Test Faith Tim Francis, they'll see it. And you can actually watch that was on Fox on my website for free, of course. And it was called Signs from God, Science Test Faith. My mom recorded it. 29 million people watched it, and I witnessed for the first time. I've never even heard of a stigmata ever in my life. And I witnessed this lady have a stigmata. And the story's amazing, and we don't have time to go into it. And that, as you say, Michael, caught my attention. I thought, what the heck is this? And as my book lays out, I had 3 questions. Is it real? If it is real, is it from God, or is it from some other kind of spirit? And if it's from God, what is my takeaway? Like, what does it mean to me? And it took me 10 years to figure all that out for reasons I don't have time to go into. But once I did, let's just say I started going to daily mass. I started doing holy hour. I started praying the rosary. All these things my mother would have wanted me to do when she was still alive. And so it's amazing. It's not because it's my story. It is an amazing story. And let me just say this. Anybody that has kids or grandkids that are away from the church, I assure you there's not one silver bullet. Your prayers are the most important. But I assure you that my mom's words of wisdom and prayers, and through my journey back to the Catholic Church, this book can have a major impact on them. I do believe that. I've already seen it. And again, they can go to the website, sciencetestfaith.com. They can get 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so glad that you put this into writing, because I know I've heard you speak about your story on this show and in person, and I know it's a moving story, and it shows the power of a mother's prayer. Talk a little bit about the turning moment. You watched the tape, and then what did you do with your life?
Yeah, look, so I witnessed this lady have the stigmata. I called Fox because, remember, 29 million people viewed this, and I didn't get the whole story, and I thought I wanted to know. I want to answer those 3 questions. So I couldn't release any video to me or anything like that. It was all copywritten and that kind of stuff. I used to go to people's houses. This was on a VCR tape, so we're talking late 90s. And I would go to people's houses, even though I wasn't going to Catholic Mass, Michael, and I would put it into your VCR. I'm not trying to convert you. It would be like if somebody showed you a tape of Bigfoot, you see. I just thought, you got to check this out. And everybody would say the same thing. Is this real? How come I've never heard of this? Always, Michael. Is this real? How come I've never heard of this? To this day, I've done hundreds of parish conferences, and everybody says the same thing. How come I've never heard of this? So anyways, to your question, what happened is I lost the tape. My mother died very suddenly and tragically. And literally 10 years after my mother sent me the tape, this guy calls me out of the blue. He's like a party guy. He's not even a church guy. He says, "Yo, Tim, I was cleaning out my house, and you left the tape at my house. I found it in a bag, and like a trash bag or something." And he said, I thought you might want it. And I got with him, and it was my mother's VCR tape. So Mom was on the other side. She'd passed away. So I go, okay, Mom's pushing me to this. So I Googled, and I found a book that explained everything, which is on my website as well. And when I got the book, not only did I find out about the stigmata, I found out about Eucharistic miracles, which we can talk about, right? I never heard of this stuff. I'm like, are you kidding me? And the guy who filmed the lady have the stigmata, Mike, he is the horse's mouth on the Eucharistic miracle of Buenos Aires, Argentina, which I'm sure you've talked about a bunch. In fact, you interviewed him, I'm sure.
That's right.
Ron Tesserero. So I've had a relationship connection with him ever since, and oh my gosh, when I found out it was, I answered those three, they answered those three questions for me. Not only is it real, and the reason you know anything is real is based on evidence. That's my opinion. And so it was real, but then how do I know it's from God? Oh, because the church guided us, because Jesus established a church, and the fruits are bringing people back to Mass, bringing people to Holy Hour. Oh my gosh, I've done presentations where so many presentations I've done, and they call me afterwards. The next 3 weeks, the pastor says, I've never had confession so long in my life, and our adoration chapel was filled up, and daily Mass tripled. Oh yeah, I get it. That's what happens.
Yeah, this is amazing. We're talking today with Tim Francis, author of the book From the Crackhouse to God's House. He talks about Science Tests Faith is his website, sciencetestsfaith.com. You can check out this book there, and you can find out more about his amazing reversion story. And so Tim, what was the big moment for you when you actually started going back to Mass yourself? You watched the tape eventually 10 years after watching it the first time. You felt that it was your mother drawing you again to this. What was the actual thing that hooked you?
Yeah, I'll tell you what it was. Very specifically, there's this lady, and you'll see her on the website. She's been under the church's guidance for 20, 30, whatever, how many years it's been now. And she's a mystic, and she has the stigmata. But she also gets messages, as many do, under the church's guidance. And those messages that she received, and you can see her getting these messages on my website on that video. Make sure every listener audience, if the least thing you do is go to my website and watch that Signs from God, Science Test Faith, it'll blow you away. But when I started reading those messages, Mike, they were punching me right in the back of the head. They were pushing me to go to daily Mass. And because I'd witnessed this lady, and eventually I spent hours with this lady. So and the person who filmed the lady have the stigmata, I'm talking about famous household name, the Mike Wallace of Australia. In fact, when he died in 2000, I think it was 17, they said he was the father of investigative journalism for Australia. So I had them in Texas. I brought them to Texas and Ohio in 2009. So the point is, I knew it was real now. And then when I started reading the messages approved by the church, everything in there was drawing me back to the Holy Mass. When we talk about a Eucharistic revival, Michael, Jesus told this lady, the one on my website you'll see I have stigmata, he said, I've never given anybody more on the Eucharist than you. He said, you are my missionary of the Eucharist. Well, see, I've been reading these books for 13 years, these booklets. And that's really what happened, is it became real to me. It pushed me back to reading the Scriptures. It pushed me to read the Catechism. It made it all real. And, of course, as you know, once you start practicing the sacramental life on a regular basis, confession and Mass, I mean, I go to daily Mass, you see what it's like without the sacraments and with the sacraments. And by God's grace, I've now been married 25 years. I've got 3 kids. I would never be married and stay married without the sacramental life of the church.
Yeah, that's an amazing testimony. We're talking today with Tim Francis about his new book, From the Crackhouse to God's House. And Tim, you wrote this book, of course, at the prompting of your wife, and I think it's a great thing for you to have a book out. In addition to your speaking, I think people reading your story, they can be handed off to somebody else, somebody who doesn't attend your talk or otherwise, or someone who wants to hear your story again. What is your hope for somebody who stumbles across your book and what they might learn about your path?
I mean, well, first of all, I have the lady who wrote the foreword, who's Tricia Smith. She's a prolific reader, beautiful businesswoman, retired, and she's super smart. And she helped me make it, digestible. And she said, Tim, and she's from the Northeast. She doesn't flatter, if you will, right? And she said, if every agnostic, she said, I didn't say atheist, because they kind of have a bent towards against. She said, but if every agnostic read this book, it would change the world. And I don't say that because I wrote it. I'm not a writer. God guided this book, and my hope is that when somebody reads this, they will see God's hand literally taking me from the darkest dark. Mike, I say things in that book I've never talked about on stage because I don't have time, that are going to shock some people, to be honest with you. And it shows you how growing up in a great childhood, how I got around the wrong situations and made the wrong decisions and almost died multiple times, highly addicted to crack cocaine. And I was a workout kind of a health guy, and how I ended up back in the Catholic Church. So my goal in life is that people will realize that the solution to all the division in the world is the sacramental and devotional life of the Catholic Church, and that they'll take advantage, not feel obligated, they'll take advantage of this amazing gift called the Mass and the sacramental life on a regular basis, the sacrament of confession. And then, of course, the devotional life with the Blessed Mother, praying the Rosary, and in particular, Holy Hour.
Wonderful. Well, I hope this book has this effect. And again, sciencetestfaith.com is the website. Tell people what they need to do to pick up this book, Tim.
You bet. It's simple. Just go and order now at sciencetestfaith.com. Go to the store. And let me say this. Of course, they give a discount if you buy so many. I think it's $20, and then if you buy more, it's less and stuff like that. But here's the deal. I really wholeheartedly believe in my heart of hearts, and this is not so I can make a buck, by the way. I traveled for 10-plus years and promoted a book and never made a dime, another person's book, off the book. But here's the deal. I believe if you get one for your kids and your grandkids, they might not read it, but because it's so compelling, from the Crackhouse to God's House, you'll see the cover, it's awesome, the power of a mother's prayer, that I really believe you have a great chance of putting something really profound in your kid or your grandkid's heart, and then let the Holy Spirit. People say, well, it's up to the Holy Spirit. I know, but we got to do our part. And so go to my website, watch the video, watch the miracles, watch the stigmata. You'll learn about, in that book, many things you've been talking about, Michael, Eucharistic miracles, Our Lady of Guadalupe. You'll learn about those things. And by the way, I, of course, promote your work in your book, in my book, Mike, because you're the expert on these things. So it's just so perfect to work together with you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I encourage people to check this one out, From the Crackhouse to God's House. And you can get that at sciencetestfaith.com. We're so grateful to you, Tim Francis, for joining us on today's program.
Thanks for having me, Michael. God bless you, brother.
God bless. That was Tim Francis. Check out this new book, From the Crackhouse to God's House. Go to sciencetestfaith.com. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be answering the question of the week. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Love getting your questions. People write in from around the world with questions about miracles happening in today's world and those that have happened centuries ago. And I love getting the questions over email, of course, but I really love answering questions in person. I give talks around the country, maybe 20 talks per year. I travel around to different conferences, parishes, etc. And I speak for about 45 minutes these days. I speak about Eucharistic miracles because it lines up so nicely to the Eucharistic revival. And I usually leave some time afterwards, and I open it up to questions. I love to hear what people are thinking about. And if you'd be interested in having me at your parish, you can go to my website, miraclehunter.com, and click on the Contact tab, and you can send me a message that way. And maybe I'll be speaking at a parish somewhere near you, in your area. Now, the question for this week is a good one. The question is, Dear Miracle Hunter, how do we know that the phenomena of stigmata is real when from mystic to mystic the wounds don't match up? Thank you, Tim. Well, thanks, Tim. This is a great question. And just to rephrase or just to clarify what you're talking about, I think we all have this sense that there are saints throughout Christian history who have borne the wounds of Christ, so to speak, who have exhibited the wounds of Christ, that is, the wounds in the hands or the side and the feet and the forehead, the crown of thorns. And we might say, well, aren't all these wounds, don't they need to be the same? And in some cases, you see the wounds appearing in the hands and some in the wrists. You see some with all the wounds. Therese Neumann of Germany had 60 slash marks on her back, for example. Some have a crown of thorns, some don't. Some only have the hands, some have the feet and the hands. So how do we make, what sense do we make out of it if all these wounds aren't exactly the same? Doesn't that prove it's some sort of a psychosomatic phenomena? And I've talked about this before on this show, that there have been exactly 0 cases of through hypnosis, these wounds being manifest on some person's body through autosuggestion, you might say. And so we know that it's not purely a psychological phenomena. But what do we make of the fact that all these wounds are different? And the only sense that I can make of it, and of course this is a question for God when we get to heaven, but perhaps this is a case of the God meeting the mystic halfway, perhaps. The mystic has their own conception of the wounds of Christ, whether it be from their reflections on the Bible or the artwork they have in their home, or otherwise they have their understanding of the wounds of Christ. And then God empowers that or allows it to happen to manifest in their body in a certain way. So perhaps that is the explanation how we can have such difference in stigmata and them they all be authentic. But this is a complicated phenomenon, to be sure, but one that is definitely not purely psychological. So thanks, Tim, for your question. If you have a question for the Miracle Hunter, you can send me a message to questions@miraclehunter.com, and maybe I'll be answering your question on the air next week. Let's take a look at the 365 Days with Mary project. We do this every week where we talk about the Marian devotion of the day as it lines up exactly to the day's date. We all know Fatima May 13th, or Lourdes February 11th, or Guadalupe December 12th, but there's a different Marian devotion for each and every day of the calendar year. And for today's date, we've got November 9th, the Virgin of Almudena from Madrid in Spain in the 15th century. And I've been to this location in Madrid. And the story goes that according to legend, before the Arabs attacked Madrid in 712, the townspeople sealed up an image of the Virgin in a wall to conceal it. In safer times, after the reconquest of the city in the 11th century by King Alfonso VI, the hidden image was sought. And then when the days-long prayerful procession passed through the Cuesta de la Vega, a piece of wall fell down, exposing the image, which not only survived in perfect condition, but was surrounded by 2 candles that apparently had remained lit for centuries within the wall, according to the legend. Another pious tradition recalls that the Castilian hero El Cid, Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, had an apparition of the Virgin who told him to break down the wall where the figure was hiding and bring it to the city. So that is the Virgin of Almudena from Madrid in Spain. For more information on this fascinating devotion or any of the hundreds of other Marian devotions from around the world, you can check out the website 365dayswithmary.com. Pick up the book, download the free app, or go to the Facebook page where you can join 10,000 followers of people who are connected to 365 Days with Mary. Let's take a look at the miracle of the day. We do this every week where we talk about a miracle that connects to some event in Christian history that lines up exactly to that day's date. So today's miracle for November 9th involves the medically unexplained recovery of a baby girl on November 9th, 1986. And this miracle was attributed to the intercession of Blessed Marie Leonie Paredes, someone who was just canonized this past week in Rome. And there was a baby born without any signs of life, but after her family prayed for the intercession of Blessed Marie Leonie, the child began to move and is now a healthy woman. The diocesan inquiry into the alleged miraculous healing of the newborn baby girl from prolonged birth asphyxia and multiple organ failure in 1986 was conducted between April 18th and October 4th, 2016 in the Diocese of Montreal. A second miracle was investigated and the process was ratified in 2006, and the medical board that advises the Congregation for the Cause of Saints approved the healing as a miracle in 2008, and it was approved by Pope Francis in 2024. And so this was the perinatal asphyxia with multiple organ dysfunction syndrome encephalopathy, and was born preterm at this Saint Jean sur Richelieu in 1986. And this was led to the canonization on October 20th, 2024, among the 14 blesseds. That was now Saint Marie Leonie Paredes. And that is the miracle of the day. We'll be doing this each and every week, talking about the miracles happening throughout the centuries. Let's take a look at the Might Be Saint of the Day. We do this every week where we talk about the people on the path to sainthood. We're talking about servants of God, venerables, blesseds, before they have all their miracles and are named saint by Rome. And so for today's day, we've got Blessed Ludovico Morbioli, who lived from 1433 to 1485 in Italy. He was his memorial, his feast day is today, November 9th. He was born in 1433 in Bologna, in the Papal States, now modern Italy, of course, and he was one of 6 children born to the lower middle-class family of Francesco Antonio and Agnes Morbioli. And Ludovico, he spent his early childhood and adulthood in a dissolute life that included gambling, violence, and a lot of heavy drinking. And he was married to Lucia Turra. While living in Venice in 1462, he was struck with a serious but unspecified illness and was cared for at the hospice run by the Canons Regular of Saint Savior and the Holy Savior. And this brush with death led to a re-examination of his life, a conversion experience, and a determination to do penance for his earlier life. From then on, he wandered the streets preaching penance and living in complete poverty. He carried a staff with a crucifix and always a plain gray shirt or a white shirt with a cross on his chest, which led many to associate him with the Carmelites, though he was never a member of any religious order. He returned to Bologna in 1470 and continued his life as a street preacher there. He wandered through Modena and Ferrara, preaching, and people would gather around him to mock him as he looked like a wild man with wild hair and unkempt beard. But then his preaching would keep them listening. He finally returned to Bologna to spend his remaining years in the basement of Palazzo Lupari, which he lived in like a monk's cell. It was later converted to an oratory. And Blessed John Baptist Spagnuolo wrote a poem about his life. He died on November 9th, 1485 in Bologna in the Papal States of natural causes, and he's interred in the Cathedral of St. Peter in Bologna, but his relics have since been lost. He was beatified by Pope Gregory XVI in 1843 on October 24th. And that is Blessed Ludovico Morbioli. With one more miracle, he will be declared a saint and will be Saint Ludovico. Let's take a look at They Might Be Saints, what's coming up on the program this week on the 13th of November. The next episode of They Might Be Saints is about Montse Grasses. I'll be examining the saintly life of Montse Grasses, and the cheerful 17-year-old who faced cancer with extraordinary faith and joy could be the first woman of Opus Dei to be declared a saint. Check that one out, They Might Be Saints, Montse Grasses, Wednesday, November 13th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We need to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be looking at the Purgatory Saints with the Purgatory Lady herself, Susan Tassone. Stay with us for that.
Now, back to the Miracle Hunter on EWTN. Here's Michael O'Neill.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Miracle Hunter radio show on EWTN Radio. This is Michael O'Neill. I'm the Miracle Hunter. Well, it's the month of November, everyone. As you know, everybody's shivering now again, especially in Chicago, where I am. It's everybody knows it's that time of year, but it's an important month nonetheless, and it's an important month because it's the month of the Holy Souls. And it's the perfect time to talk about those people who have gone before us, and for those people, and what we should do going forward to pray for those people who have departed. And I think it's kind of an interesting thing. We talk about the Holy Souls, but we can also talk about Purgatory Saints. Perhaps those are saints who have had some sort of experience, mystical or otherwise, or an understanding or connection to the souls of Purgatory. Well, we're so grateful today to be joined by the true expert on Purgatory, and that, of course, is the Purgatory Lady herself. We welcome back to the show today, Susan Tassone.
Good morning, Miracle Hunter. Happy month of the souls.
Yes. Good morning, Purgatory Lady. This is great to have you on in this month. I know this is your busy month.
Yeah.
You're always talking about the Holy Souls of Purgatory, and now we can talk about the Purgatory Saints. Talk to us a little bit about why this month is so important to you and why focusing on these saints is a good idea.
Well, it's important because it's a doctrine of our faith, Michael. You know, we're given the power and privilege to help release the souls in purgatory. Who are they? There are our parents, our brothers, our sisters, our aunts, our uncles, our priests, our religious, and they're all intertwined in the fabric of our lives. And so there's not one saint that the church hasn't had. Well, there's only the souls in purgatory have the whole month dedicated to them. There's not one saint that has a whole month. That's how important it is for the church to encourage us to pray for them. And we get this question. Well, if they're already in heaven, why do we pray for them? And so there's something we talk about all the time on Father Mitch's show, accidental glory. If a soul's already in heaven, let's say your parents, someone died 30, 20 years ago, what happens to those prayers? And really the prayers are not just going to another soul. It's bigger than that. St. Thomas Aquinas calls it accidental glory. If a soul's already in heaven, you pray for them. You continue to pray for them. That soul gets two things. It gets an increase in its intimacy with God, and it gets an increase in its intercessory power, so the lesson is you never stop praying for them. In fact, it's even addressed in the Catechism, number 958. You go read it, and it explains that the more you pray for them, you increase their intercessory power to help you.
Wonderful. We're talking today with Susan Tassone about Purgatory. This is the month of the Holy Soul, so it's the absolute perfect time to talk to Susan. And she has a new book that's out called New Friends, Now and Forever, A Story About the Holy Soul. So check that one out. I wanted to talk to you specifically today, Susan, about Purgatory saints.
Yes.
There have been saints throughout history who have had a connection with the Holy Souls. Perhaps they've seen visions or they've had an understanding of the Holy Souls in a way beyond what the normal saint might have had. Talk to us about, for example, Saint Faustina. Why is she considered to be a purgatory saint?
Yes. In fact, Michael, all my research, and this is really true, there's not one saint, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, there's not one saint that has been given the inspiration or the desire to pray for the holy souls. Any book I pick up about any saint, you could start with, Faustina, you could start with Mother Cabrini. There's a whole chapter in one of her books about their devotions, Padre Pio. But Faustina, of course, she's the apostle of mercy. Our Lord asked her to proclaim his message of mercy. And of course, that includes the souls in purgatory. She had experienced visions of the souls. In 1926, the guardian angel took her to purgatory, and she saw that they were praying, but to no avail, because only we can come to their aid. So the message is, or the point is, they can't pray for themselves in purgatory. The only thing they could do is intercede for us. So what God has given us the power and privilege to come to their aid. And she said to them, what brings you joy? What makes you happy? And they said, doing the will of God. So they willingly suffer in purgatory. There's no rebellion. They hurl themselves into purgatory because they see that they're not perfectly lined up or totally pure to stand before God. The souls also told her that they call Our Lady the Star of the Sea, because she visits them and brings them refreshment. I had to just do some research, and it was really our dear friend, God rest his soul, Father Apostoli, that explained what that title meant, the Star of the Sea. And so it was just fascinating. There's a fixed star, Michael, called Polaris, and that star navigators use. When they use them when they're traveling, that they use that star. It's a fixed position to help them. And Our Lady is the fixed position that guides us to her Son. So that's where that title comes from. She also said to them, what do you need? And they said they needed prayers, they needed masses, and they also said that besides doing the will of God, they want us to avoid purgatory. And our Lord actually told her to pray certain prayers. And guess what he told her to pray? He told her to pray the Eternal Rest Prayer, which is the official prayer of the Church for the dead. She also experienced purgatory herself. In fact, she said when she went to Mass, she had the experience of the torment, because she said, what do you suffer? And they said that their greatest suffering is longing for God, because they saw God, they're unable to be with them, and that's the primary suffering. So they burn for love of God. And she had that brief experience of that torment when she received communion. She had this intense hunger for God. And it only lasted a short time, but she said she understood what that longing was like. So in perspective, it's God's burning love. It's his longing for the souls, and it's that creates their longing for him. So they burn for love of him. It's like a spiritual fever. They have an unquenchable thirst, an unspeakable yearning. It's like a heart sickness because they want to be with God, and they're unable to. So they cry out, God, God, I must be with God. And so what we can do for them, what they need most, is the Mass. Either attend Mass, offer Masses, offer your indulgence, offer your Holy Communion, do the Stations of the Cross, the Rosary, Adoration. Why those? I call them the pillars, because of the indulgences and the promises that are attached to them.
Amazing. We're talking today with Susan Tassone about Purgatory Saints. And, of course, in November here, we have the month of the Holy Souls. And, Susan, I'm always fascinated with Padre Pio. I know he has some connection to the Holy Souls. What do we know about Padre Pio and his understanding of
another Purgatory saint? They're just, like I said, every single saint I've ever come across has some devotion or experience. And he said that, well, of course, he was a Franciscan stigmata. He had the stigmata. He was born in Italy, and he had a special relations with the souls. And he said that they were his frequent visitors to such an extent that he said he saw so many souls from purgatory, he wasn't frightened anymore. And he said that he encountered more souls from purgatory than he did from those who were still on earth. And he received souls in this one particular example. A lot of deceased soldiers during World War II came to him and lined up for his intercession. And it's a true story. There was a monk who lived with him, and he saw these strange soldiers near the fireplace, and he was wondering how they got in. And Padre Pio said that they weren't actual soldiers, but departed spirits who stopped by for help on their way to heaven. And in fact, when they stopped by, they also thanked him and all shouted in one voice, "Viva Padre Pio! Long live Padre Pio!" because of his intercession for them. There's also something else that he wrote. Now, if you want to learn more about the saints in purgatory, I have a book called Praying with the Saints for the Holy Souls. It's a great book that covers many saints. But there was one thing about Padre Pio that I discovered, that he talked about that. Let's say your grandfather died 100 years ago. He even used himself. He said, what if Padre Pio died, 100 years past, and no one offered a Mass for me? And he said, and then someone comes along, like the Miracle Hunter, and decides, I'm going to offer a Mass for Padre Pio. He said that Mass is already taken into account. So even now you can pray for your deceased loved ones for a happy death. I had a grandfather that died suddenly. He was hit by a cab and died of head injuries, and I didn't know about it until, not too long ago. And so I had Masses offered for him, and I did the Chaplain of Mercy for him. And God takes those into account when you do that. So there's no time. Our Lord, the past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. Everything is like an eternal presence. So those prayers that you decide to pray now have already been taken into account. So even now you can pray for the happy death of your great grandfather. Padre Pio said that, do you really think that the Lord needs our bureaucracy, that somebody has to ask for, a grace on a piece of paper, and bring it to Padre Pio? No, you can still pray for your deceased loved ones now, even if they've gone before you. And I have, to the fourth generation, your grandparents, great-grandparents, great-greats, I pray for them all the way to the fourth. And I encourage everyone, I've done Gregorian Masses for them, which we can talk about too, Michael. But that's a little background about Padre Pio and his friends. And I have to share something. There's a connection that I've noticed, Michael, with Faustina, with Padre Pio, with Pope St. Gregory, with all the saints. Do you know what it is? There's a pattern. Who do they go to first? That's what I see. Who do the souls go to first for help? They go to people that they live with, to fellow sisters and fellow monks, and family members, the ones that they had a close connection with, the ones that they were, that they lived with. That's who they go to first for help.
Amazing. We're talking today with Susan Tassone about Purgatory Saints. We've been focused on St. Faustina and Padre Pio. Of course, we could talk about Pope St. Gregory or Blessed Solanus Casey, and I encourage people to check out your book for more information on that, and people can go to your website, susantassone.com. But your latest book, Susan, is called New Friends, Now and Forever, a story about the Holy Souls, and it's the winner of 5 Catholic Media Awards, so it's a well-received book. As we wrap up the program today, tell us a little bit, what will people gain from picking up this new book, New Friends?
Oh, for children, we're reaching the children, which we haven't done ever before. There's no book that's ever been written on purgatory for children, and how do you teach children a doctrine like purgatory or any difficult doctrine? You tell a story. So we just have this incredible story, and then I've learned actually the parents. We have a special letter for the parents to explain purgatory. We have a seek and find in the book because there's so many symbols of our faith that are in the book, and we have to plant the seed in the children so that when our time comes, that they're going to know how to pray for you, and they're going to have a devotion, to their deceased loved ones. So I can't stress enough, again, as you said, the 5 awards were incredible because it was they said it was a great formation book. It was a great book to, aesthetically, the illustrator won first place. There was so much in it that they really confirm that we were able to reach the children and teach them about this doctrine, so they can pray for the dead. The one last thing too I want to mention is Gregorian masses. Put them in your will. Pope St. Gregory, popularized it. It's 30 masses in a row for one deceased soul. And you can go to the Pious Union of St. Joseph. Those are very powerful masses that, the story was a soul was released from purgatory. Does the church confirm that? They don't come out and say, yes, after 30 masses, you're released from purgatory. They point to the efficacy and the power of the masses. And in fact, back to the children's book, all those things are weaved in the book where they're going to learn about the Mass, they're going to learn about the Eternal Rest Prayer. It's just probably one of the greatest books I've ever done, Michael.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations on that book. And we're so grateful to you, Susan Tassone, for joining us on today's show, talking to us about the holy souls in purgatory and these incredible purgatory saints. Have a wonderful month of November, Susan.
You too. And remember, Michael, most souls are released on Christmas Day. Not it wasn't All Souls Day, Christmas Day, so we need to get them home for Christmas. This is just the kickoff. So remember to offer your Mass, your indulgences, on Christmas Day for your deceased loved ones. That's when the greatest number of souls are released.
Always good to know. Thank you so much, Susan, for joining us on today's program.
Thank you, Michael. Have a good month.
God bless. And that's all the time we have for today's program. If you missed any of this episode or want to catch up on past episodes, you can go to EWTN.com/radio, check out the audio archives, or download the free EWTN app. I'd like to thank our guest today, Tim Francis, talking to us about his new book, and Susan Tassone talking to us about the Purgatory Saints. Check out my episode of Explore with the Miracle Hunter about Paray-le-Monial, where I visit Paray-le-Monial in France, where St. Margaret Mary Alacoque first experienced dramatic visions of Jesus' Sacred Heart. I'll explore the origins of this cherished devotion. And I'd like to thank you for joining me today on Miracle Hunter, where from claims of healings and visions to the world's most inexplicable events, whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the truth is always worth the hunt. Talk to you next week.